Folks, the Mac Studio coverage hasn't even calmed down, and already we are talking about next year's Macs. But this one holds a special place in my heart, the perfect MacBook. So today, I worked with talented render artist Ian Zelbo, and we came up with a concept that is gonna absolutely knock your socks off. So let's talk about this news, what it could mean, a 15-inch MacBook Air, and let's see what it could look like. So without any further ado, make sure to get subscribed down below, leave a like on this video, and let's get into it. Today's video is sponsored by Anker and the new 521 Nano Pro charger. The new Nano Pro is the bigger brother to the popular 511 and offers dual fast charging capabilities and delivers 40 watts of power in a tiny and convenient package. It's similar in size as Apple's 20-watt charger, but delivers double the power through double the ports. With the Nano Pro, you can fast charge an iPhone and an iPad at the same time, or you could even charge your AirPods and your MacBook Air with a charger this small. Plus, it offers ridiculously fast charging times. In just 12 minutes, you can add 20% charge to an iPhone 13 Pro Max. The Anker Nano Pro line of chargers offers unprecedented convenience, portability, quality, and just really darn fast charging. To check out Anker and the new 521 Nano Pro charger, check out the link in the description below. And now, back to the video. Alright, so let's not mess around here, folks. Let's talk about the news. According to analyst Roos Young, who is extremely accurate, Apple is working on a MacBook Air that's somewhere around 15 inches in size, with the machine set to debut alongside a slightly larger 13-inch MacBook Air. Now, according to Young, this larger MacBook Air could come out in 2023, but we don't really have a specific date. And this is a really important piece of information to get from someone so accurate as Roos Young, because over a year ago, Mark Gurman was talking about how Apple had once considered making a 15-inch MacBook Air, but decided not to and waited for the next generation. So it seems like now Apple is finally ready to come out with a 15-inch MacBook Air, hopefully. This is really big news because ever since the MacBook Air's inception, Apple has been thinking about internally making a 15-inch version of it. Apparently, Steve Jobs had talked about that before we all even knew what the MacBook Air was in like 2007. Now, the rumored redesign for the MacBook Air came out quite a while ago. It was leaked by John Prosser and rendered by Ian Zelbo, who you'll see some more renders from in a second. And it features a lot of design cues that we now see on the MacBook Pro, and some which seem to harken back to the iPad Pro, which obviously has sort of laid the foundation for the direction that Apple has gone design-wise for a couple of years now. So what would a MacBook Air of this size look like? Well, Roos Young has some additional information. He updated his initial report by saying that the 15-inch panel is 15.2 inches, while the 13-inch grows from 13.3 to 13.6 inches. This makes sense looking at Prosser's renders because we can see that these speaker grills are a similar width as the current 13-inch MacBook Pro, but with thinner bezels, you'd have to increase the screen size to maintain that footprint. And I gotta say, I really like the sound of that. A MacBook Air 13 or 15, MacBook Pro 14 or 16. So each size would be slightly smaller, thinner, and lighter for the Air, and bigger, thicker, and more performance-y for the Pro. I think that would be a really cool lineup, and oh my gosh, a 15-inch MacBook Air is probably just about the most perfect MacBook that I could possibly imagine. So what would a 15-inch MacBook Air actually look like? Well, I worked with Ian Zelbo to come up with some renders, and this is a concept, by the way, not a leak, but here is what we think it could look like. To come up with this concept, we took most of our design cues from the MacBook Pro. So aesthetically, it shares a lot of that. The rounded corners on the screen, the notch, the keyboard with painted keyboard well, but we also took some cues from the iMac, so we have a colorful enclosure. Now, in order to make the design significantly thinner, obviously there won't be as many ports as on the MacBook Pros, so we removed most of them, leaving just a USB Type-C on either side, and that, along with the MagSafe connector, sort of determines the thickness of the device. You have to imagine that Apple would leave a little bit of room above the ports to maintain chassis rigidity, and then we also changed the radius of the curvature underneath the ports because obviously those are included as a way to disguise thickness, and with a thinner machine, we would make those proportionately thinner as well. So overall, I think the device looks absolutely stunning and is a perfect showcase for what Apple Silicon can demonstrate. And then to have all of these aspects of a thin, light, almost certainly fanless Ultrabook, but with a 15-inch display, that is sort of the best of both worlds in my opinion. I absolutely love my 12-inch MacBook, even though it's terrible, because it's super small and thin and portable. But then I also really like to use the 16-inch MacBook Pro because you just get so much real estate and you can see things very clearly. Because I know there's a lot of people out there who have said, essentially, I want to do Photoshop or design work or light video editing, stuff that can easily be done on an M1 processor, but I need a little bit more screen space than 13 inches. This is the machine for you. It means you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on hardware that you don't need, but you can get the screen real estate that you want. So now that we have an idea of what a 15-inch MacBook Air could look like, let's talk about the M2 chip that would power it. Now, it's been assumed / hoped that the M2 chip will power this redesigned MacBook Air and accompanying 15-inch version. However, apparently there might be some doubt on this. Ming Chi Kuo threw out the prospect of a new MacBook Air coming still on an M1 chip. To me, that seems doubtful, or at least I really hope that doesn't happen, because the M1 chip is going to be 2 years old by the time this MacBook Air comes out. So I hope they're not going to be using that. But in terms of the actual M2 itself, we've heard from Mark Gurman that apparently Apple is going to be bumping the GPU cores from 7 and 8 to 9 and 10. So that should give you about, 20% more performance, assuming the cores are the same. Hopefully more than that. And in terms of the design overall, a lot of people have sort of assumed that the M2 chip will be based on the A15. However, I have a conspiracy theory that the A15 is actually based on the M1, which is in itself based on the A14. The evidence for my conspiracy theory comes from Geekbench, where if you look up the A15 chip, you'll see that the single core performance score is identical to the M1, and you'll also see that it's clocked at almost the same exact speed, off by just a few megahertz. Compare this to the A14, which has slightly lower single core scores and lower clock speeds, and to me that says the A15 and the M1 chip are A14 cores, but they're being clocked a little bit higher and therefore getting more performance out of them. So a similar core, but a little bit faster. I would expect for M2 that it's going to be a new core, and that would line up with a fall release because that's when we're also expecting the A16 chip. So I would expect at this point that Apple is working on their A series and M series chips simultaneously because they share the same basic ingredients, right? So it would make sense to work on the entire stack together, which allows you to be a little bit faster about having products and processors come out. So that's my conspiracy theory. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. The new 15-inch MacBook Air. This, I really hope that this rumor is true because I might have to buy more than one of those. I mean, it looks awesome. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As usual, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.